Allow me to introduce Candace, my new partner. From today onward, she'll be residing here. All that's left is for you to sign the divorce papers and pack your belongings, Paul asserted, his tone unwavering. Janet's confusion deepened. What? Why all this talk about divorce and asking me to leave? Paul persisted, his frustration evident. It's crystal clear. You're unable to conceive, Janet. I require a wife capable of bearing children. Sign the papers promptly. Remaining composed, Janet countered. I've already relocated. I initiated the divorce proceedings a month ago. Paul's disbelief was tangible. What? That's preposterous. You can't simply declare a divorce on your own, Candace interjected, her smirk unmistakable. You can't unilaterally divorce someone, Janet. I'm carrying Paul's child. You've lost. Undeterred, Janet maintained her composure. I'm merely stating the facts. I anticipated this development. No amount of apologies will alter the reality. They'll soon come to realize their mistake. A slight smirk crossed Janet's face as her mother-in-law entered the room. You're still here, Janet. Paul told you, right? Hurry up and divorce him, her mother-in-law urged. Paul chimed in, echoing his mother's disbelief. You're lying, Janet. You can't just divorce me without my consent. Janet sighed, observing the uncanny resemblance between Paul and his mother, like son. Their disdainful looks mirrored each other. Genetics are truly remarkable. I released a heavy sigh before addressing my mother-in-law, conceding to her point. You're right, Mother, I can't file the divorce papers without his signature. However, if I possess Paul's signed application, then a divorce is feasible. Do you grasp the situation now? She scoffed dismissively, rejecting my words. Nonsense. When did he sign those papers? Stop talking gibberish. I maintained composure, reiterating my stance. There's no gibberish here. He definitely signed them in my presence. He simply doesn't recall. At that moment, Paul seemed to have a moment of realization. Janet, did you coerce me into signing while I was asleep? If that's the case, it's despicable, forcing me to sign without my knowledge. What were you thinking? I stood firm, calmly refuting his accusation. That's not what happened. You signed in front of me. You've often threatened divorce whenever we disagreed, even bringing out the pre-filled papers when intoxicated. I simply submitted them to the lawyer. Paul appeared incredulous. I don't recall any of that. I honestly don't remember. With a matter-of-fact tone, I confirmed the reality. Regardless, I submitted them a month ago. The divorce is final, and I've already relocated. My husband's frustration was evident, but Candace's supportive gesture seemed to embolden his confidence, as they exchanged triumphant glances. I couldn't help but ponder the situation. It had saved me the trouble of visiting the lawyer. I was now officially single. Paul, now filled with confidence, taunted me. How does it feel, Janet? Frustrating, isn't it? Doing a favor for a woman who can't bear children. Will you pack your things and go? Next, my mother-in-law joined in, echoing Paul's sentiment. I always knew you weren't the right fit. Paul works for a prestigious company. You're just ordinary, Janet. You and I are as different as night and day. Their identical expressions of triumph were unmistakable. Since the day I said, I do, my mother-in-law had made it her mission to extol her son's virtues incessantly, and during her lengthy monologues became a regular part of my life, each one more tiresome than the last. Just recently, she regaled me with tales of how the president personally commended him, ensuring his imminent promotion. That's my Paul, she would boast, implying that a woman like Candace was the perfect match for him. Please, never show your face here again. It's refreshing to cut ties with a failure. Suppressing my laughter became increasingly difficult, but when I finally burst into giggles, my outburst left my mother-in-law, husband, and Candace dumbfounded. What do you mean by implying that we don't understand anything? Demanded my husband, his tone defensive. I won't allow you to insult not just me, but also my mother. It's not an insult, it's pity, I countered, shifting my gaze to Candace, who avoided eye contact. The confusion between my husband and mother-in-law deepened, prompting me to address the elephant in the room. Paul, You can't just jump into another marriage because she already has a husband." A stunned silence filled the room before my husband erupted into laughter. "Come on, what tall tale are you spinning now? Such concocted stories are beneath you." Disappointed, he shook his head, brushing off my words as nonsensical. My mother-in-law chimed in, dismissing my supposed lies and impulsive divorce. "It's foolish to fabricate such obvious falsehoods when you've severed all ties," she declared, echoing my husband's sentiment. Seizing the moment to assert her dominance, Candace wrapped her arms around my husband, pressing her body against his. His visible discomfort at her touch disgusted me, but Candace remained unfazed. "Your wife is just envious because she's infertile," she remarked condescendingly, her words a thinly veiled jab at my inability to conceive. Then she directed her pity towards me, painting me as the pitiful one. "Candace is truly the best. She's just wonderful, unlike the barren failure," she sneered, solidifying her position as my adversary. "Janet's a woman with a kind heart," they remarked, "but also pitiful, yearning for children she couldn't have, her future seeming bleak." They chuckled at the thought of her moving to a nearby place, insinuating it must be a shabby apartment, fitting for her. Together, they hurled snide remarks like players in a coordinated game, each comment adding weight to their collective disdain. However, I anticipated their remarks, maintaining my calm demeanor to plan my next move. "It's easy to criticize an infertile woman, isn't it?" I challenged. "But can any of you maintain that stance after seeing this?" I handed Candace a paper, watching her face drain of color as she read it. My husband, checking its content, turned pale too, realizing the gravity of the situation. My mother-in-law snatched the paper, her disbelief evident as she scanned the words. "It says here that Paul is infertile," I admitted, my voice steady despite the tension in the room. "The reason for our childlessness wasn't me, but him." Despite my efforts to involve him in treatment, he shifted blame onto me, leaving me to manage everything alone. Brandishing another paper, my test results, I explained there was no issue on my end, my frustration palpable yet controlled. "Their positions must now be uncomfortable," I mused, observing their reactions. They pitted me for infertility when, in reality, it was my husband. As I stared at them sternly, my husband finally spoke up, accusing me of withholding information. But how could I, when he was hardly ever home, preoccupied with work, oblivious to my efforts? Then came the revelation about Paul and Candace's affair. My mother-in-law's horrified inquiry prompted me to admit I had known all along. My words landing like a heavy blow, their shock left them speechless, realizing the gravity of their actions and the depth of their misjudgments. Upon witnessing her reaction, I responded with a compassionate smile. Indeed, I harbored suspicions when he began to exhibit such frequent absences, I confessed, acknowledging the conspicuous signs of an affair. This spurred me to scrutinize the actions of both Paul and Candace more closely. As my mother-in-law crumpled in shock and my husband remained immobile, I maintained a composed demeanor. With a firm clap of my hands and an encouraging smile, I posed a probing question. "Now that Paul's infertility has been revealed, yet Candace is pregnant, whose child could it possibly be?" The answer ought to be evident to both my husband and mother-in-law by now, as I mentioned earlier. Unveiling the truth, I disclosed Candace's existing marriage, signaling her deceit of both Paul and my mother-in-law. Tension permeated the room, enveloping us in an unsettling silence. Despite their recent triumph, my husband and mother-in-law seemed disoriented and defeated. Meanwhile, Candace struggled to maintain her composure, evidenced by the bead of sweat trickling down her forehead and the nervous tremor in her crossed arms. As anticipated, a woman capable of infidelity operates with a different mindset, I observed, alluding to a distinct psychological makeup. Despite the palpable tension, Candace managed to conjure a smile, contesting the validity of the test results. "There is no conclusive evidence. The authenticity of these results cannot be verified. Could you not have fabricated them?" she challenged defiantly. Taken aback, my husband and mother-in-law turned to me. But did they possess the fortitude to mount a rebuttal? Engaging in such a dispute seemed futile amidst our family turmoil. Maintaining her defiant stance, Candace squared her shoulders and addressed me boldly. "The foundation of your claim that I am married hinges on the document indicating Paul's infertility, correct?" she queried. "This document lacks direct endorsement by a medical professional and could be deemed a forgery, could it not? If his infertility is called into question, then the child in my womb belongs solely to me and Paul. You will bear the repercussions of tarnishing my reputation as a married woman. If witches roamed, their laughter would mirror hers, unnatural grins, exposed teeth, eyes squinting like a crescent moon." Candace, it appeared, had ensnared and duped others previously, yet accountability rested solely on her shoulders. "Oh, how lamentable," I sighed. "You could have come clean and offered an apology," handing her a card-shaped paper. I urged her to accept it graciously, placing it in her hand, face down. She turned it over, her complexion shifting as she read the text. Tremors shook her body, sweat glistening on her forehead. Concern etched my husband's face as he asked, "Candace, what's wrong? Is that a business card?" Wordlessly, she handed it to him, revealing the name, Gail Robert. Shock rippled through him, mirroring Candace's reaction. "Hold on, what's going on?" I inquired, puzzled, almost snatching the card. My mother-in-law recognized the significance of Harrison Corporation's CEO. "Isn't that where you work?" she demanded. Confusion clouded my understanding as she sought the connection between the company president and Candace. "Janet, you're aware of the truth," I prompted, sensing her evasion. "Gail Robert is Candace's husband," she finally confessed. Collapsing in disbelief, tremors seized her, echoing Candace's reaction. "No, it can't be," she gasped. "An affair with the president's wife." My husband, too, was incredulous. How could I have known? "I didn't even realize Candace was married," he exclaimed. The weight of realization settled as he comprehended the implication. "I slept with the president's wife." As agitation mounted, Candace's gaze bore into me, her lower lip trembling. She must have gleaned from my husband that I was deemed ineffectual, her patronizing demeanor laying it bare. Thus, my association with President Gale, Candace's spouse, likely came to light. The realization of being outmaneuvered must have stung deeply for them. "How did you uncover my husband's involvement?" she probed. Before I could respond, my mother-in-law abruptly rose, seizing me by the collar, catching me off guard. "Janet, name your price. I'll compensate you," she implored. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes," even offered countless apologies. "Just promise to keep this between us. Let's act as if it never happened." Her desperation astonished me. After diminishing me repeatedly, now she sought to erase it all as if life were so accommodating. Such predicaments arise from self-absorption and demeaning others. Even if we feigned ignorance, similar issues would inevitably resurface. A quick fix meant nothing for my husband or mother-in-law. "Mother, it's past the point of remedy. President Gale is privy to every detail," I asserted. Candace's husband, President Gale, was the one who reached out to me initially. He had already inferred Paul's affair with Candace. "What do you mean President Gale approached you?" she exclaimed. As I confirmed silently, she collapsed like a puppet with severed strings. President Gale had sensed the affair and initiated an investigation, proving more meticulous than I. It seemed he was gearing up to divorce Candace. "How convenient, now Paul can wed her," she remarked, hinting at the apparent ease of the situation. "It's a fact that Robert Gale is my spouse." "Nonetheless, the child belongs to Paul," Candace interjected, attempting to cover her tracks. Despite her makeup melting from cold sweat, she maintained her facade impeccably. I interjected, blocking any chance of evasion. "Isn't it President Gale's child?" "Confirmed with President Gale's help," I asserted. "How?" she inquired, puzzled. "Didn't President Gale mention a blood test?" "He did speak about checking my health," she replied, appearing bewildered. Her initial glamour had waned, replaced by weariness, as if she had aged instantly. "Using a pregnant woman's blood and a man's cells is common now," I elucidated. "A mouth swab is sufficient. Prenatal paternity tests make it feasible." Did you have all that arranged? Candace eventually sat down, exhausted, her once neatly styled hair now disheveled. Everyone seemed to grasp the situation, albeit in a dazed manner. I exhaled contentedly, hands resting on my hips. Then my husband mumbled something, his expression souring. I tensed, expecting a confrontation, but he suddenly exclaimed, "This is preposterous. After all the sweet nothings you whispered, it was all lies. What possessed you to have an affair with someone from your spouse's workplace, you unreasonable woman?" He wasn't addressing me but Candace, a newfound vitality ignited in her eyes, previously listless. "Didn't you realize every rose has its thorns? Just because you sampled it doesn't mean you should take it seriously. You're truly naive," she retorted sharply. Paul's frown deepened. "Are you upset? Your pride makes you predictable. You fail to recognize you're merely following orders, like a pet," he accused. "What did you say? To whom do you think you're speaking?" Candace approached Paul, her gaze intense, causing him to recoil slightly. "Understand this, our affair was exposed because of your incompetence," she continued. "And who are you addressing? I am the wife of a president. You have no grounds for complaint. Even if you're being manipulated." Paul stepped back, offering a dry smile. "Ah, I see, that's your true nature. I get it now," he remarked. Walking past Candace, he approached me and suddenly took my hand. "Janet, I've had an awakening. It's been quite a journey, but I've discovered genuine love. You're the one I've been searching for," he declared. His lips moved swiftly toward mine, but I instinctively dodged his kiss, reacting with fear. Without hesitation, I kicked him in the groin and retreated to a corner. Sweat drenching my back, Paul groaned, still calling my name. Oddly enough, my mother-in-law, sparked by the notion of true love, fervently defended Paul, urging reconciliation. "Paul, it's wonderful you've realized your true feelings. Just a little more persuasion for Janet," she coaxed. Ignoring my husband, I turned to my mother-in-law, who was still showering Paul with adoration. "Mother, both of you said earlier, didn't you, a woman who can't bear children is useless. But I don't think so. However, Paul being useless, isn't that correct?" Her eyes lost their sparkle instantly, awkwardly dropping her gaze as she shrunk back. It seemed to quash any lofty dreams she harbored. As for my husband, he stood frozen, like a statue. Being labeled as useless must have been a first for him. Despite being clever and lauded by adults, moral integrity seemed to elude him. I cast one final glance at him, ensuring a safe distance. "You condemned Candace for her deceit, yet you've deceived me too. What goes around, comes around," I remarked. Paul, clutching his groin in pain, reached out desperately, but I refused to take his hand. It was too late now. Did he finally grasp the sting of being called useless? As I smiled broadly at him, he stumbled forward, finally offering an apology. "I apologize. Janet, it was all my doing. Can you find it in your heart to forgive me? Just this once, I'll demonstrate my ability to change," he implored, admitting his fault. "They say infidelity is a deeply ingrained issue, not easily remedied. Why would you, a stranger to me, choose to bear with such a burden?" With those words, I departed from my in-laws' home without casting a backward glance. Following this, Paul faced legal repercussions from both myself and his employer, resulting in his termination for moral misconduct. Despite this setback, his sense of pride as an elite momentarily shielded him, allowing him to maintain a facade of normalcy at home. However, lacking my disciplined influence, he struggled to manage household responsibilities, leading to a swift decline in his quality of life. Frequent clashes with his once close mother became commonplace. The industry's awareness of Paul's transgressions hindered his job search efforts, exacerbating his mounting debt. Eventually, he reached out to me again in desperation, seeking assistance, but I firmly rebuffed him. Presently, Paul's existence revolves around repaying his debts, juggling menial part-time jobs. Meanwhile, Candace, buoyed by the president's leniency during her pregnancy, enjoyed a lavish lifestyle as the president's spouse, until reality caught up with her. The president claimed custody of their child, leaving Candace to face divorce and eviction post-recovery from childbirth. As for me, I found a new job and embraced a tranquil single life. Free from one-sided conflicts, eventually, I remarried, fulfilling my dream of parenthood. Cradling my newborn, I pledged to dedicate myself wholly to their happiness, cherishing every precious moment. Do you have any thoughts after hearing this story? Tell us in the comments section. Next, to give you the same warm story, let's continue to see it. Hurry up and start unpacking, Ethan commanded, his tone firm. My parents will be here soon, so I need you to cooperate and not cause any trouble. I wasn't informed about living with your parents, I retorted, a hint of frustration in my voice. Of course you weren't, I made the decision myself. You just need to follow my lead without complaint, Ethan replied dismissively. If you have an issue, you can leave. The unilateral decision to live with the in-laws was absurd, but Ethan had gone ahead with buying a new house without consulting me. He had also left all the moving preparations in my hands. It was frustrating. But I had anticipated the situation and taken preemptive action. Fine, I'll start unpacking, but where are your belongings? I asked, trying to maintain my composure. Ethan seemed momentarily flustered. Oh, right, I left all that to you. Sorry, I forgot, he admitted sheepishly. With a calm demeanor, I informed him, well, your belongings aren't here, so I can't unpack them. His face flushed with irritation. Ethan snapped. What's with the attitude? You're getting ahead of yourself, remember. You're just a maid. Internally, I couldn't help but smile at his misplaced arrogance. I knew I would need to make him understand. As Ethan and I exchanged glares, the in-laws arrived, their expressions turning somber as they sensed the tension. Ethan's voice broke through the silence, demanding an explanation. Lucy, what's going on? If there's a problem, you should speak up. We're family now, and we should be able to discuss things openly. They chimed in, their tone gentle and understanding. Living with Ethan wasn't always easy, but the support of the in-laws helped me endure. With gratitude, I thanked them for their concern, taking responsibility for the situation. Thank you for your understanding, father and mother, but this time, it's my fault for upsetting him, I admitted. Hoping to diffuse the tension, I made a mistake and accidentally sent his belongings to the wrong place. It's understandable that he's upset, I admitted, the tension in the room palpable. The in-laws seemed surprised by my error, as it was uncommon for me to make such mundane mistakes. Throughout our marriage, I had strived to be the perfect wife for Ethan, never slacking off in my duties. While Ethan may have expected such perfection, the in-laws appreciated my efforts. Thank you for always caring, we're glad you're his wife, they reassured me, when they asked for clarification about the misplaced belongings. Ethan reluctantly nodded, suppressing his anger. Even he couldn't maintain his tough demeanor in front of his parents, who had raised him. As I recalled Ethan's oppressive attitude before his parents arrived, I felt my frustration bubbling up, but I knew I had to remain composed to execute my revenge. Taking a deep breath, I calmly revealed the truth. Actually, I sent his belongings to his affair partner's house. Ethan's panicked response filled the room, drowning out his parents' voices, despite his initial fluster. He quickly regained his composure, offering a cold smile. Sorry for raising my voice suddenly, he deflected, attempting to downplay the situation. His parents, still uncertain, looked to Ethan for clarification. He plastered on a friendly smile, assuring them of his fidelity. Dad, Mom, I wouldn't do anything to upset you, he insisted. Sure, couples have their disagreements, and we may feel attracted to others. But that's all it is. We swore love to each other, and I wouldn't act thoughtlessly. His parents remained skeptical, questioning whether they could trust him. Ethan continued to manipulate the situation, blaming my revelation on my supposed loneliness and desire for attention. As he turned to face me, his smile remained, but his eyes betrayed his true feelings. Avoid any superfluous words, his inner thoughts warned. Were I still the compliant wife, this moment might have led to my surrender. However, having orchestrated everything, fear eluded me. Instead of yielding, I responded with a confident smile. Absolutely not. What insinuation are you making? My unexpected defiance seemed to catch him off guard. leaving him visibly more flustered as he attempted to close the gap between us and his parents. Before he could speak, the voice of the in-laws interjected, "What do you mean by not at all? Does your account differ from Ethan's?" I appreciated their impartiality, though biological offspring were typically favored. While I had hoped to maintain ties with these kind people, it appeared unlikely now, yet, to honor their past kindness, I felt compelled to reveal the truth. In truth, he's treated me as a maid every day, I confessed. He dumped all the moving preparations on me. Moreover, I wasn't informed about living with you until we arrived at this new house just earlier. He even threatened to evict me if I objected. The in-laws, incredulous, turned their gaze to Ethan, faced with their silent interrogation. Ethan vigorously defended himself. "That's absurd. I've explained everything to her. She's pretending, trying to get back at me for my neglect. Don't be fooled. It's equally challenging for us to resolve such contradictory claims without concrete evidence. It's a pointless dispute. What a mess," he concluded. Clearly frustrated by their ambiguous stance, he erupted into a barrage of unrestrained yelling directed at me. "Lucy, stop throwing tantrums. You're confusing Dad, Mom, and me. Let's have an open and honest discussion instead of resorting to lies." His accusation stung, but I remained resolute. "I am speaking openly and honestly. You're the one twisting things," I retorted. Father's earlier dismissal of the argument without evidence resonated in my mind. "Let me provide some evidence right now," I declared. Ethan's surprise at the mention of evidence was evident. Ignoring his displeasure, I produced a voice recorder from my pocket and pressed play. As the audio played, Ethan dropped the keys to the new house in shock. "What was that? What do you mean?" he spluttered. "That's what you said to me just a moment ago. Are you already suffering from dementia?" His confusion was palpable, overshadowed only by his indignation. "Why the hell did you record that? People don't carry around voice recorders like that." Ethan's tone grew rough, oblivious to the suspicious glares from his parents. "It's because of how you usually treat me," I explained calmly. "I've reached my limit with your bullying." His incredulity was apparent. "You can't just do whatever you want." Before he could advance towards me, my father-in-law intervened, pulling him back with a firm hand on his shoulder. As Ethan faced his parents, their expressions hardened with fury. "Ethan, what's the deal with that audio clip? Weren't you standing by what you said?" His mother's tone sliced through the tension like a knife. "And what's this talk of bullying she mentioned? Separate from the cohabitation and affair, isn't it?" His father's brows furrowed, eyeing Ethan and me alternately. Confronted by his parents' disapproval, Ethan's face drained of color, his anger dissipating. "No, it's not like that. I probably got carried away with the excitement of starting afresh," he mumbled, his voice barely audible over the tense silence. His parents remained skeptical, their disappointment palpable. "Can we really trust you this time? Everyone makes mistakes, but repeated errors aren't excusable," his father asserted firmly, while his mother's expression conveyed a mixture of concern and reproach. "I swear I haven't been harassing Lucy regularly. It's the truth," Ethan pleaded, desperation tinging his voice. "Thanks for your word," I intervened. My smile strained as I reached for the voice recorder once more. As the recording played, Ethan's laughter sounded hollow, his derogatory remarks echoing through the room. The atmosphere grew heavier, his parents' expressions darkening with each word. Unable to withstand the weight of his actions, Ethan's voice wavered as he confessed. "Okay, fine, I admit it. I've been tormenting her regularly. Please, just stop the recording," he implored, his voice thick with shame. I acquiesced. Pressing the stop button, silence descended, broken only by Ethan's uneven breaths. "I've stopped it, as you asked. Now, will you genuinely apologize?" I prompted, the gravity of the moment hanging heavy in the air. His parents fixed him with unwavering gazes, a mixture of disappointment and concern etched on their faces. Ethan swallowed hard, his head bowed in shame. Unable to meet their eyes, he expressed remorse, his apology laden with regret. "I deeply regret the hurtful words I've said. I promise to never demean you again. His words hung in the air, met with a heavy silence as we all fixated on him, our expressions inscrutable. Initially compliant, Ethan dared to lift his face, only to grimace in discomfort. My neck is killing me, he complained, attempting to adjust his position. I didn't say you could raise your face yet, I interjected firmly, quashing any further movement. Nor did I say you could speak. Since when do I need permission? His response was quick, tinged with irritation. I'm the one suffering a neck pain here. Haven't I apologized enough? He implored, a hint of exasperation creeping into his tone. Whether an apology suffices isn't for the apologizer to judge, I replied calmly. It's for the recipient to decide, but let's leave it at that for now. We're not done talking. My smile seemed to deflate him, his expression sinking with disappointment. What now? You still have something to say, he questioned, frustration evident. I'm telling you I didn't cheat. Don't worry, it's not about infidelity, I reassured, producing my smartphone. Playing a video, I watched as his face drained of color. Is this your bedroom? The voice in the video queried. Here comes Ethan, pulling something out of the drawer, a wallet. Oh, he's taking money out. Isn't this interesting? He stared at the screen, his complexion turning ashen. This is my secondary wallet, he stammered, his voice trembling. This frilly, glittery long wallet. Besides, this drawer is part of my vanity. Are you saying you've been keeping your wallet in my vanity drawer? He fell silent, unable to muster a response, under the expectant gaze of his parents, going quiet when it's inconvenient, just like a child, I remarked, noting his discomfort. That's fine, I'll explain to your parents. As I recounted the incidents of missing money from my wallet, Ethan remained tight-lipped, his lips sealed in silence, even as I glanced his way. His face turned a vivid shade of crimson, resembling a beet at its ripest, while his gaze remained steadfastly fixed on the ground. Had he been a beacon of virtue, I might have been swayed to offer him the benefit of doubt, yet, the reality painted a starkly different portrait. He had exhibited nothing short of cruelty and malice, subjecting me to torment. To unearth the truth, I installed a camera, and the footage it captured was a testament to my efforts. Unbelievable, my father-in-law muttered, his disbelief weighing heavily in the air. The shock must have been overwhelming for him, envisioning his beloved son, whom he held in high esteem, stooping to bully his own family and resorting to theft. My mother-in-law seemed to be rendered speechless, her only response a deep, resigned sigh. I haven't stolen anything. Why would I need to? I earn my own living and have more than enough, Ethan insisted awkwardly. Despite the damning evidence captured by the camera, his explanations persisted. Though strained, perhaps comprehensible given the reluctance to confess to theft and invite scrutiny into his motives, the truth emerged. Ethan had commenced stealing money after deciding to purchase a new house a few months earlier, equipped with indisputable evidence from the camera. I delved into the investigation to uncover the motives behind his thievery. It was during this probe that I stumbled upon evidence of his clandestine affair, still intending to deny it. You needed the money for your affair, I confronted him, bluntly. No, I haven't been engaged in an affair, he retorted adamantly. Rebecca is a fictional character, I've no acquaintance with her. Despite the overwhelming evidence to the contrary, his steadfast denial only fueled my frustration, prompting an exasperated sigh. While concrete evidence regarding the affair might have been elusive, the meticulously documented instances of bullying and theft left little room for doubt. I handed him the investigation report on the affair, hoping to finally penetrate his stubborn denial. As he perused the pages detailing the evidence, his complexion drained of color, while conversely, the in-laws' faces flushed crimson with rage, their teeth clenched so tightly I feared they might shatter. Both of them erupted in a cacophony of loud shouts, heedless of those around them. What is this? After denying the affair all this time, now you're backed into a corner with undeniable evidence. If you were going to reveal such a disgraceful side, you should have owned up to your guilt from the outset. Do you even possess a shred of humanity, you bringer of parental misfortune? They bellowed in unison, their anger palpable. contrasting with the seething rage of his parents. Ethan's demeanor turned even icier after their tirade. With a long sigh, he uttered something outrageous. "Ah, well, it's all out in the open now. I was supposed to handle this more discreetly. Oh well, I had planned to abandon you all anyway. It's just happening a bit sooner than anticipated," he callously remarked. "What do you mean, Ethan? What do you mean by saying you're going to abandon us too?" they demanded, their voices lowered but demanding the truth. Ethan no longer seemed concerned with concealing his malevolence. It appeared he had given up entirely. "What do I mean? I purchased this exquisite new house to live with my beloved Rebecca. I've been pressuring Lucy with abrupt cohabitation and dumping all the moving responsibilities on her to drive her to seek a divorce. Once I'm single, it'll be a breeze. I'll concoct a plausible excuse to rid myself of you all. Family can be easily managed with a little smooth talking," he callously revealed. "How could you even entertain such foolish thoughts? What about Lucy and us? Shame on you for deliberately inflicting psychological harm. It's nothing short of criminal," they thundered, unleashing their most intense fury of the day. However, he merely brushed it off with laughter, callously declaring us all as mere stepping stones in his pursuit of Rebecca. "Just gracefully accept that you've been ditched by me for Rebecca." "Huh," he sneered, spouting his vile lines without remorse. His laughter abruptly ceased when I began laughing louder than him, leaving Ethan and the in-laws puzzled. "What's so amusing? It's unsettling," Ethan remarked, his confusion evident. "It's just utterly absurd. How could I not laugh? I've already had a conversation with Rebecca, you know. That's why I know her true intentions. To her, you're just an ATM," I countered, unable to contain my amusement. "What nonsense are you spouting now? Are you jealous of her? Huh? Unlike you. She is beautiful and graceful. You never stood a chance from the start," Ethan retorted defensively, his confident facade crumbling into a short moan followed by heavy snorts. "Rebecca is also beautiful on the inside. That's why she was drawn to my personality. Anyway, don't meddle in someone's love life just because you weren't chosen," he continued, attempting to salvage his pride. "A person truly beautiful on the inside wouldn't engage in an affair with a married man. You claim you bought the new house for her, but I doubt she plans to live with you. She transferred me the compensation and quickly moved to a high-rise apartment with another man," I disclosed, presenting him with the harsh truth. "What, another man?" he exclaimed in disbelief, trembling as he accepted the photo from me. As he gazed at the image of the stunning couple holding hands in harmony, large tears welled up in Ethan's eyes. "This can't be true," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. "Why not verify it yourself?" she boasted about the high-rise apartment. "I know the address," I suggested, relishing the moment. Suddenly, the mother-in-law interjected, joining the conversation. "That's right, Mother. That's the high-rise apartment where I sent Ethan's belongings," I affirmed confidently, unable to suppress a smirk. As the reality sank in, Ethan collapsed to his knees, his arms hanging lifelessly as he sat on the floor. "I see, what goes around comes around," he muttered. Finally comprehending the consequences of his actions, his parents sighed in dismay, acknowledging the swift justice that had befallen their son. Seeming devoid of any remaining energy to resist, Ethan remained silent as I delivered the final blow. "Your scheme was poorly executed, Ethan. If you're going to deceive someone, you should be prepared to be deceived yourself. I'll never forgive you for deceiving not just me, but also your kind parents," I asserted firmly. With his head hung low in silence, tears quietly cascaded to the floor. Exchanging knowing glances with the in-laws, we silently departed from the scene. Following this, Ethan began residing alone in the expansive new house. However, tranquility was short-lived as one day, Rebecca's boyfriend abruptly stormed in, sparking a tumultuous altercation. The intensity of the shouting and commotion prompted concerned neighbors to alert the police. It transpired that the cause of the uproar was Ethan's belongings, unknowingly sent to Rebecca. The discovery of their relationship, coupled with a packing slip bearing Ethan's details, led to the confrontation. In the chaos, the lavish furniture intended for a life with Rebecca suffered significant damage, plunging Ethan into deeper despair. Meanwhile, it emerged that Rebecca had engaged in multiple affairs beyond Ethan and the man from the high-rise apartment. This police incident and subsequent altercations served as a wake-up call for all parties involved, leading them to realize the futility of continued involvement with Rebecca. Eventually abandoned by all, Rebecca found herself destitute, having lost everything. Desperately seeking refuge, Rebecca began frequenting Ethan's residence once more, further exacerbating his distress. His mobile incessantly buzzed with texts and calls from dawn till dusk, and Rebecca's frequent visits to the new residence became the subject of neighborhood gossip. Ethan's fear of venturing outdoors intensified, leading him to spend his days behind closed shutters and curtains. Eventually, he resigned from his job, opting for remote work only, consumed by a life overshadowed by dread of Rebecca, which took a toll on his mental and physical well-being. Meanwhile, I found solace in my unwavering dedication to work, unburdened by unnecessary worries. Each day brought a newfound joy in my professional endeavors, with my performance duly recognized by my superiors. As a result, I am set to ascend to a higher position in the coming fiscal year. With increased financial independence, I took the opportunity to express gratitude to my in-laws once more, acknowledging their unwavering support that facilitated the smooth resolution of the situation. They exemplify true kindness, treating me as their own, and I am committed to embracing this new phase of life positively, as a means of repaying their boundless kindness. Do you have any thoughts after hearing the above two stories? Tell us in the comments section. That's all for today's story. Please subscribe and give a thumb up. See you next time.